Sunita, are you there?
Good morning, Bede. The clock has gone back, so it's winter time here.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, what I wanted to do today was I wanted to talk about what it. You see, in Vedanta we have two things. We've got self-discovery on one side, and we've got the preparation needed to be able to discover that's what we need to discover, to be able to see ourselves as we are. To be ourselves as we are requires a certain preparation. Now, what I want to do is I want to just simply go over what that preparation involves. Okay.
Sounds good. Let's go for it. Yeah, you have to prepare for anything. So Vedanta too.
Right. Now, as my teacher said, what she said was important is this: is that when you're looking at practice, you need to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you haven't got your bearings. So, the whole process of the preparation in Vedanta is very easily summed up. It is a movement from being subjective and reactive as an individual to becoming objective and responsive as an individual.
That is lovely. So from reaction to response.
Yeah, like it's interesting how the word responsibility means the ability to respond. But when we're full of reactivity and subjectivity, responsiveness isn't actually possible. It's as though we no longer have that capacity to respond when we're caught up and enclosed in subjective reactivity.
That's true. Yes. I mean, explain further, please, Bede.
Well, what we're looking at here is that, you see, when we're looking at being subjective, what happens is that this is when we become our reactions, we become our thoughts. Now, this can happen all the time. Like, for example, has anyone ever put you down?
Sure.
Yeah. Now, when you feel put down, it's as though you have become the idea that they said about you.
Yes, and together with the fact that you give them the benefit of the doubt, you almost convince yourself you are that.
Well, yeah. Well, what happens is that any form of criticism or condemnation or social disapproval, what it is, it acts as a trigger. Because once we were very little and social approval when we were 4 or 5 was absolutely important. So what happens is that any kind of, usually speaking, any kind of criticism or rejecting behavior on the part of others has a huge impact. And what it does is when they say, all variations of you are bad or you're a loser or you're defective or there's something wrong with you, what happens is suddenly there is the thought there is something wrong with me becomes embodied as the experience of myself. I literally feel that the feeling bad and myself become one and the same. So I literally become the reaction.
Yes, quite true.
Now,
I recognize that.
Right. And the other thing, too, that we need to recognize is this, that the problem is not the reaction. The problem is, in Vedanta, it is me being the reaction. Now, this is very, very important because, you see, in the West, particularly with psychology, which I know something about, what happens is that the feeling is that people suffer from various objects other than themselves, like they've got anxiety problems, or they present with grief problems, are sad, or they present with hostility, or they're losing their temper, or they've got behaviour problems in the sense that they do things that they compulsively do things that are not in their best interest, or they compulsively not do things that would be in their best interest. And so what happens is that what the person's looked at. There they are, and what they've got is they've got these problems that are away from them. Now, Vedanta isn't a psychotherapeutic technique. It sees the problem fundamentally as a problem of identity, of who and what I experience myself to be. So the structure of unhappiness, you see, if I am sad, what it is, I've got an object away from me that I am sad about.
Correct.
Okay. Now, so what happens is that I am sad, so I am a sad person. Okay?
Yes.
All of me is sad. So when I'm suffering from sadness, all of me takes up all the room, which I always do anyway. But in this case, what takes up all the room is myself as a sad person.
Yes.
And in Vedanta, my being this sense of myself, this being a sad person, is the problem, not what I'm sad about. I haven't got a problem with grief. I am being grief. So I take my grief and myself to be one and the same thing.
Yes, it seems so intrinsically related. I mean, how do you separate these two?
Now that's a very important point. Now I'm very glad you brought that up, because you see, we know what it's like, don't we, when we have these moments where we are a conscious being in relation to what is. Like when we go for a walk in the beautiful trees and all that stuff, nothing is being triggered, do you know what I mean? And we find ourselves simply being ourselves related to what is happening.
Yes.
Now this is the beauty of Vedanta. Because of all my psychological background, when I found Vedanta, I thought all my Christmases came at once, because all of the problems and difficulties that I knew that psychology wasn't handling got resolved within Vedanta. So here I am. On one hand, I am sad. I'm reactively sad. In other words, it's not that I've chosen to be sad. I find myself being sadness. Does that make sense?
Yes,
now,
that makes sense.
Let's imagine, and we won't say how yet, I could suddenly, in that very moment of being sad, if I could shift to being myself related to what is.
Yes.
Automatically, without any choice on my part, when being myself as a conscious being related to the whole, and that takes up all the room, what happens to myself as a sad person?
See, I guess that the sad person goes away or goes into the background because it takes up the whole room.
That's exactly right. It hasn't been totally resolved, because in the preparation of Vedanta, we're not dealing with the total resolution of problems. We're talking about the relative resolution of problems. So what happens is, when I am being myself as a conscious person related to the whole, when I am being that is my solution.
Yes.
Because it's it's a shift. It's not that I'm changing myself. It's just simply I have shifted from being reactive to being conscious. Does that make sense? And if you notice with awareness, when we're being aware, awareness is not a job that we do. Have you noticed that?
Yes, so you're saying that awareness is not a choice.
No, what happens is when we are being conscious, we're basically aware of things by being ourselves. That's That's a beautiful phrase from Swami Dayananda's meditation book, but we're being aware by being ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we're alive to what is.
Yes.
But when we're being sad, are we alive to what is, or are we completely enclosed in an experience of ourselves?
We're completely enclosed, because it seems as if the sadness simply takes over.
It does take over. It takes over and takes up all the room. So in
Yes.
Vedanta, the whole practice of karma yoga is a shift, a cognitive shift. You see, what happens is that when we are being sad, it is a way of seeing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the embodiment of a way of seeing. And we see, for example, when we're seeing our life and we're sad, this has happened to me and this happened to me and I feel sad. So what happens is I've produced pictures of the past, and then I'm saying, this is terrible, and I'm feeling sad about it. In other words, this is making me sad. So those events that happened, the memories of them now, because they're not there now, these memories are making me sad. So
Yes.
as far as I'm concerned, I'm not the problem.
The memories are.
The sadness, yes.
Sadness, yes.
The memories and the sadness is the problem. Everyone believes that their problems are their emotional pains and suffering. They never come to this understanding unless what we've talked about before. We must understand that the problem is located with me. With me. Does that make sense? And this,
it makes sense, but you started saying, how do you discern that, I am sad, from I am sad to I am awareness?
No. We're not going to I am. That's later.
That's later, okay.
Being a conscious person in relation to what is.
See, the point is, at the moment of sadness, I just don't know what is.
No, and you don't know that you don't know what is. That's true. It's not only you don't know what is, you don't know that you don't know what is. Because as far as you're concerned, what is the pain.
Yes.
Now, this is what we mean by subjectivity. Now, Swami Dayananda has a beautiful, it's like a little sloka. It's like a little saying that's absolutely beautiful. It's like what he's done is he's taken this absolutely profound truth and put it into this little like slogan thing. So I want to tell you about it.
Yeah.
What he says is this. He says, when you're being subjective, it's because you see it, it's there. When you're being objective, it's because it's there, you see it. Now, you see, it's a
wow.
I know. It's a beautiful thing. Because, you see, when our mind is full of what is there, because it's there, you're seeing it, your mind is full of objects that are there. You are objective. Yeah. You are objective.
Very nice, Bede.
So what happens? You're full of what is given. And you're in a relationship to that. That may include reactions. Okay? So given is everything is happening plus your reactions to what's happening. So when you're alive to those, everything like that, right? You are being objective. Okay? Now, let's imagine that I think that you are you're a real pain. You're a very difficult, neurotic woman. Let's imagine that I've got that kind of notion. Without knowing it, you see, Swami Dayananda says that whenever you describe someone with one or two words, you're always being judgmental.
Yeah.
Now, you see, when I am seeing you as a difficult, neurotic woman, what happens is that I have a notion in my mind a way, and our thoughts in our mind don't just sit in our head. They are ways of seeing. I want you to get this. Our notions are ways of seeing. So that means I have a notion in my head that you're a very difficult and neurotic woman. I project that notion. I'm not aware of this. It's an unconscious thing. I suddenly project that onto you, right? And then what I'm happening is I'm experiencing a very difficult and neurotic woman.
Aha.
Now, because I am seeing it, it is there.
Yes.
Because I'm seeing it. But in fact, I'm not seeing at all. I'm actually seeing, it's like I'm dreaming. It's literally like I'm dreaming. But as far as I'm concerned, so what happens is, you know, if you stop and you look at a tree, you're seeing the tree because it's there.
Yes.
Now here's the problem. When we are caught up in subjectivity, we experience it as completely and utterly objective. And we're unconscious of the fact that we are being subjective.
So true, Bede, and it's so beautifully explained just now. Wonderful. I see, therefore it is, or it is, therefore I see.
It's a beautiful thing. It's
unbelievable.
It's a beautiful thing. Now, the reason I chose to explain that first about where you project onto others, we also project onto ourselves.
Oh.
What we do is we go like this. Now, I found it rather strange when Swami Dayananda says that, you know, that our suffering is to do with self-judgment, because I thought, no, I'm suffering. It's not that it's a self-judgment. I'm suffering. What is he talking about? What is my teacher talking about when she talks about it?
Yeah.
The thing is this, is that when I am sad, there is a judgment. I am sad.
Aha.
And this judgment, this self-judgment, has turned into an experience of myself. And mind you, a very convincing experience of myself. It's completely convincing. I feel this all through me. This experience of myself as a sad person takes up the whole room.
So true, Bede. I mean, now that you say it, I mean, it's like, if I can look at this woman as a neurotic woman, and then I shift it and I say, how do I look at myself? I am sad. It completely fills up. It is not objective, it is subjective. You're right.
Subjectivity fills up and takes up all the room all the time, and we don't know it.
Oh my God, is there a solution to this?
You see, that's why Swami Dayananda says that within the preparation of Vedanta, the reduction of subjectivity is everything. It is of primary importance. That's what he says. It's a primary importance. So, you see, I just want to go over a bit more. See, so now, this is the big question, you see. We need to know, how can I tell that I'm being subjective? I mean, if I'm caught in subjectivity, if it's appearing to me as completely and utterly objective, how can I actually cognize the fact that I'm being subjective?
That's exactly it. How do I detect it? Exactly.
Very good point, Vanita. Very good point. Now, it's actually quite easy. You see, now. So what happens is that when we are being subjective, we are basically in some kind of friction or some kind of conflict with what is. We have, instead of a sense of communion with what is, we are in friction with what is. When I'm sad, am I in conflict with myself? Am I wishing I wasn't sad?
Sure, so of course.
There's friction.
Yes.
Have you ever been angry about your anger?
All the time.
Have you ever been sad about your sadness?
almost kicking myself, come on, get out of it. And,
Yes. And have you ever been anxious about your anxiousnness?
Sure, it's like in physics, we say it's like almost the nth derivative. You go on and on.
Right.
I mean, you fall into this spiral.
Right. Because what happens is that the fundamental thing we have to recognize is this thing of friction. You see, so what happens is, so we can actually see when we can take this as a truism. The moment I'm in any form of friction with myself, with other people, or with circumstances, I'm dreaming. What I am seeing is a projection of my mind that I'm taking to be true.
That is really so good, Bede. So the minute I feel you're saying the way to detect it is the moment you are in friction, I'm dreaming. That is something I really need to think about.
Now, well, see, how Swami Dayananda puts it, he said that basically that the basis of reaction, you see, this is the interesting thing. You see, the basis of reaction is non-acceptance of facts. The very basis of reactions. And you see, she's a stupid, neurotic woman. Guess what that is? It's a reaction. And I don't like her. I wish she wasn't here.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to talk to her. Or the basis of my reaction to my suffering, oh my God, there I go again. I just wish I could overcome the sadness. The basis of it is non-acceptance of the facts. Does that make sense? It's non-acceptance of the reaction.
The question does come up, what is the fact then? You just told me, you see, I am sad. Is that a fact? Or she's a neurotic. Is it a fact? What is a fact?
No, the reaction of sadness is a fact, as well as what happens. So the reaction is a fact. You see, there's a big difference between me being alive to the fact of my mental reactions and my becoming the reaction. You see, when I'm alive, when I'm a conscious being in relation to what is, and facing what is with graceful acceptance, I can't be that reaction. It's not possible. And this is the practice of karma yoga.
It's a tough one, Bede. There are so many steps.
Yeah, but it's actually a very simple thing, actually. Now, but the first thing we have to get is this. You see, have you ever noticed that sometimes you think that we sometimes think that the practice of karma yoga, right? The practice of karma yoga is something we try to do. We try to practice.
Yes, we try so hard because hard work is the one which is the only thing we know.
Right. Now, trying is a bad mistake. Trying is like trying. You see, you can't try to become yourself as a conscious being. You can basically, you can shift into being yourself as a conscious being, because that's what you are fundamentally. In your basic form, you're a conscious person in your basic form. So you can shift from being reactive to being yourself facing an event. And this is the whole practical point of karma yoga. Now, but here we go, problem. So when we're looking at practice, we need to know where that practice is. Where do we practice and when do we practice? Okay?
Yes.
So first of all, the time of practice is right now. Now this is important. I can't fix what I did yesterday. I can't get what is going to happen in the future. So the only time to practice, and we're going to go into this in our next discussion, is right now. Right? Now.
Perfect. Yes.
So right now. The second thing is, where do we practice? Right where we are. Right where I am. Right? In the strict sense of this word. We don't practice somewhere else. I'm taking my attention off objects because I know that that's not where the problem is. So
Right.
where I practice is right where I am. And what is my practice? That's a very interesting one, isn't it? What is my practice?
Yeah.
Being myself as I am. This is my practice. Yeah. It's very important to know this because otherwise our orientation isn't right. You see, if we need to know, when do we practice? Right now. Where do we practice? Right here where I am.
Right.
And what is our practice? Myself, being myself as I am, is my practice. And being responsive from that.
Totally awesome, Bede. Being myself. So when the location, the time location, the space location, and what I need to do is being myself.
That's exactly right. It's an interesting thing. I won't go into this now because it's not really our area, but you know, when they talk about freedom, the freedom and happiness we're seeking, guess when that is? It's right now. Where is it? Right where I am. And what is it? It is myself as I am. Now, I know that's a wrong thing, but it's important. That gives us, let's give us the correct orientation. In Vedanta, the whole thing is centered on me. The whole thing is centered on me. So what I want to do is in our next conversation, I want to go into this more thoroughly because I want to go on to how we can actually, what the practice involves, this shifting from being subjective, which is not being ourself as a conscious being. There's no graceful acceptance in when we're reacting, is there?
No.
There's friction,
Not.
pain, and suffering.
Yes.
But when we are being gracefully accepting, does that make sense?
Yes.
That changes everything.
I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but I mean, being gracefully accepting when I'm in the middle of a storm, how am I going to do that?
That's a good point, and we're going to go into that next time. Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks for talking. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.